Word. Okay, the recording is in progress. So welcome all. We wanted to do the blue bus entry. Welcome to the blue bus.
It all happened in the blue bus between 1938 and 1942.
And now it's happening within our own consciousness. Baba's presence and our individuality, our portion. Today we're going to be doing an article written by Norina, actually and then a two-part article that is a lecture that she gave, and I think it's Nagpur University, and it's very interesting because it discusses the Eastern and Western perspective, and so without further ado, unless there's any questions, we will.
Are these from the Mayor Baba Journal or other sources?
No, these are from the Mayor Baba Journal. They were published.
And then I'd like to follow along. Which page? Where do you start? What section?
Yeah, it's the title of the talk is An Intuitive Talk with Mayor Baba. It's if you look in the table of contents there, you know what I did. Did you print it out or did you? You can.
No,
either...
it's a soft copy, but yeah.
So if you printed it out, then I go through and number them and then put those numbers in the table of contents so you can quickly reference.
I'm not seeing that title.
Intuitive Talk, Mayor Baba.
It's just Intuitive Talk. It's after and Unforgettable Memory, right?
Yeah, right.
Page 200.
Right. Okay, so now I need to share screen. Okay, there we are. Intuitive Talk with Meher Baba. The effective desire of men to control the best in men is far too high to be followed in the ordinary trend of life. Men have to live the life they want. This is to say, men have to live the life that they feel that they can live and express. To say this in the self-realization reaction order is to say that all what is doing in the world is good and bad, and that it has to be one or the other order to bring to effect the truth as the third form of life, which is pure, real, one in self, as expression of life unselfish and of love impersonal. All in the world is good and bad in two ways of realization of the self. Life is use of two ways in all the four view-making, order-doing shows of life in consciousness. To see this, one has to see the self-impersonal, do the self-impersonal, and realize the self-impersonal. That is, to do in self-individual the progressing experience of the self-impersonal, or to say it in the mystical sense, do in life the realization experience as self-impersonal in the self-individual by being good and bad, to self-order in being good or bad, the self-real, which is the third order within the two-in-one order-doing ways of life impersonal. All is effect in life. all is realization of the effect. To see the effect be good, one has to see the effect be bad. When one is effective in both ways, one has realized the third way, which is the conscious, realized state of seeing and knowing that all is realization of two-in-one ways of self, and that is to know the real scope of all as it is. Life is scope and fact and action in one whole way, and that is to understand what for one is, was, as one is. One is as one is for the use of duality in unity. To be the human self and to live as the human self is to see and realize that one has to bring to effect the two ways of seeing and being the human life. So one is either good or bad. To see further is far too hard to see or to know what it is doing, as it is doing the realization experience of understanding. To understand is to see, know, and bring to expression the realized experience. The third act of seeing and being the new life of self-impersonal is to know that one is fully sure of the realized show in the real self.
This is to bring the fact of faith to full experience in all. Life has to be experienced, and so it has to be life realized in experience. No one is realized in self-impersonal without the experience of the self-impersonal. All is experience, and all is effect in experience. This is to make it clear. Life is life of effect and of realization reaction. In the mystical way, it is life of self-imperative in self-impersonal and in self-individual. Life is experience of being one, all self-impersonal, as it is an order imperative in self-impersonal and individual to live and realize. To live is to live for all. As in living for all, one is fact of life realized in feeling. To live is to live in use in all. That is to say, one is good and bad in full in all, to make in all the effect of one or the other as good or bad. The life of use for all is to live in self-impersonal. To live in self-impersonal is to live for the good of life. All impersonal idea is right and useful for all. Life is self-interest, and it is self-realization impersonal. Life is good and bad to be lived impersonal, imperative for use of life impersonal. Life is impersonal, imperative in use in all, as it is for use of all. Life is self-impersonal in use of self-imperative. This is to say, life has to lift the self-imperative for the use of all. Consequently, all is self-imperative for the good of life of all. Get ready. One moment, please. Yeah. Life is good and bad to make it right, real, pure, unselfish. All impersonal idea is good and bad to use the two in one ways for life to realize. In the two in one ways, life as self-imperative. For the average man, it is far too difficult to understand what is life and what is the scope of life. To know it is the only way to see its realization reaction for use of good. Let it all be done by me, says Meher Baba, to all who know the impersonal ways of thought, who see the impersonal way of life as use of life impersonal. To seduce the third act of self-impersonal, one has to live the life impersonal. To live the life impersonal, one has to live two ways of life. One is good and the other is pure. Pure life is unself-conscious of life impersonal and of life individual. No one is right or wrong till in the real self, in the self real, realized and sure and one. So it is for all in the world. Let them know more. Let them suffer the life individual and see the realization reaction bring out the new life. See them learn the lesson of being wrong and of being false and of being untrue to one another. See the learning lesson of all to bring out the realized good show of life one. It is to self-sacrifice life of the two in one ways, and then to self-realize in the two in one ways all. All is to be experienced. So let it all come as it is. Confide in the pure intuition, which is the realized way to see, know, feel all as true, good, right. The intuition of self-impersonal is good. The intuition of self-individual is bad, as it is impersonal in use of the good and bad. To live for one another is to live for good and bad. And that is what most men do in no way realize. A good friend is doing bad for the good, which is self-experience of good, for the good of self-experience. All is relative in effect. To live for good is to live for bad, as in both ways. One is right, good, and wrong, and bad. Life has to be learned to be understood in the realization value, and in the self-impersonal, it has to be experience of the realized reaction, which is mere realization, expression. The life of self in the dual self is 2 and 1 ways of self. All is the same in the field of life in experience. So it is life as experience, which is the safe school of life. One is false and good, and false and bad, to help the play of opposites to live and dispute in living. The fact of life impure and unself-conscious of being realization experience. Life is good and bad for the whole of life to experience the third order of self, which is right. Real in self impersonal, pure in self individual. This is the case of the pure realized man, as is Meher Baba. He is self-unconscious of being one or the other, and that is, he is good for good, bad for good, realized impersonal for use of self impersonal. To make the realized order imperative be true, he does the good. To make the good be true, he is realized impersonal. To bring to effect the true realization of all impersonal self-realization, reaction, he is true, real, pure good. So it is far to see to know how the universal life is fact-making and order-doing impersonal realization, reaction to help the life of all, to know the real scope of all as life, as man, as existence.
To live for use of me is to do my work to help the world to understand. So do it for the use of me, says Meher Baba. Do it for the good of me here to serve the world. See to bring it to full realized reaction in you by saying to all, love and see the effect. Love and know me, the realization reaction. Love and live for good. Love and see to live for use of life, and that is to live for the good and for the bad. Love and see to bring out the good of all, and see to make them believe in the good. See to make them see the wonder of God. See to lift the heart of men. See to love the poor and the rich and all who, impersonal, individual, are suffering for the same wonder of life, which is the realized reaction in all the different ways of knowing, seeing, feeling, and understanding. See to live for truth. See to live for good, and see to realize the good that is in all. So this is the lecture that Norina gave in northern India. So it doesn't specify exactly where.
I'm so glad you chose this, the third form, which is what I brought up in Scott's group.
Yeah, we had, it was interesting. There was prescient.
And you see how it all serves the good, but the lessons of the bad serve the good. So there's the good and the bad.
Right.
And then we see the way through has to do with purity and selflessness and being impersonal, which I think is meaning neutral in the biggest sense of the word.
Right.
So actually, kind of being in tune with the innate balance of the universe.
Right. It's
The
all
Tao.
about,
Yeah.
yeah.
So in situations I've been in, I've seen where that's the hardest thing. Like you do something and you're doing it for the good, but it seems like you're doing bad.
Yeah.
But in the long run, it's for the good. But to get everybody to see that, very hard.
Yeah,
Let's
that's
read
the
it.
key. The key is the pure and selfless.
Let's
Right.
hear the
Okay.
mystical language.
Okay. So
Yeah.
so we'll, yeah, now this is shifting gears. As I said, this is getting into a lecture given to Indians. So the audience is Indians, although it's published for everybody in the Meher Baba journals. But it's a distinction between the Eastern perspective and the Western. Only the God-man is selfless. Selfless service is the new realization of self-impersonal in the new order of the world. To understand the fundamental value of the selfless existence of a man like Meher Baba, one has to see the true value of selflessness. Few people give to the selfless attitude of the mind a right importance. The God-man is selfless, and he is good. That is more than the usual way of being selfless of the ordinary selfless human being. It is far more than to be kind and good and to do charity or selfless work in human society. It is far more than to be kind and see to the well-being of men in the physical body. It is to make others happy. It is to lift the mind to higher realization of real scope of life. It is so far more to see the truth in self-impersonal than to be right, good human creature, which is thinking that he is doing selfless work by asking others to help the poor or asking others to make the poor wholly happy by inflicting upon them some religious dogma. It is far more than this, what we as finite mind can express in words of selflessness or goodness.
Someone's not muted. Can everyone please mute?
It is far more than this, what we as finite mind can express in words of selflessness or goodness or mercy. No one is able to know the realization of self-impersonal till in the self-impersonal knowing of the real good, which is devoid of self-impression, of self-reaction, of self-order for self-satisfaction. Again, someone is unmuted. What?
You mute him.
Let me just, what we learn in living with the perfect human self as God-man is that he is unconditional in all the feelings of self which he has to experience, and to make it possible for us to see, know, and feel his pure reactions. Meher Baba is the most pure reaction in us that one is able to have as the human self, as the finite self, as the individual. His life is pure reaction. He is the purest self and the purest heart and purest mind as human self, as the individual. His impression on us is real and unselfish. Who is unselfish in the human self? No one. No human being is unselfish till the self-impersonal realized. That is the real way to make it clear to men when they say, what is the difference between an ordinary man and the God-man? The God in man is the latent self-impersonal, which he has to fulfill in self as the feeling. And that is to make one whole self act of living in the self-impersonal effective through the life in its own self's experience and expression. No use saying, I am what I am not. No human self is able to live and give happiness to anyone in life until devoid of the self-impersonal and personal as the individual and the infinite existence.
God is the only real friend. God is the only pure Father. God is the only real, realized self in the whole of the universe as mind. So it is impossible to make us know what is real selflessness unless it is performed in the human self by one who is right, just, good, real. It is far too much difficult to say to men in the general mental state of the individual life finite, but it is safe to let everyone know that God in man is the only pure creature that exists in the whole of the universe. This I here say, and real and true know out of my own experience of the divine self impersonal. I know Meher Baba in the self impersonal, and in this I have said what I have said before in my lectures to others. He is our life as it is, and as it ought to be, as pure example for men to live and aspire. He is God and man for the good of all who see the God be the religious expression of all what is ideal and real and pure. This is to be in the new life, for all that what he is as human being, which is devoid of self. What is God? God is self, and self is God. But God is devoid of self as knowing that he is the self. God is simply the power of life realized as human creature whenever he is taking the form of the pure incarnation. God the Beloved is man. God the Beloved Self is man and God as human creature in the perfection state. So let us all find the God as human creature that is pure, unselfish. God is to be found in all the truth realization reactions of the impersonal self and of the pure self as being, which is devoid of self. That is the saint of India and of the other parts of the world. No use saying that one is good and act wrong for the good of one's own selfish profit. No use being selfless for the good of one's own spiritual sake. No use being better than others and show it in order to feel the pleasure of being better. No use saying, I love the God and act wild and crude towards men. No use to be religious and say that one is good at going to church when one is far too much interested in the benefit of doing the pious act of giving the visit to the church or to the temple. All is well and good for the beginning in life as spiritual school of the self. But oh, friend, let it be right and good in the heart, that which is real religion. Let it be right and real in the mind, that what is right thinking. Let it be pure action, that what is spirituality. To save the human life in destruction is another way to say God is too cruel. What is to be cruel? It is to make men live in ignorance of the human self-individual. That is cruelty. That is far more cruel when the mind is to think of God. Let the head be calm and the heart be warm, and in the two in one motion be right and just. Let it be all the dictation of God, that what you do in the scheme of life, know God and see God in all. That is far more than to write the usual philosophy on God. No use to make life be an order of the head, and in the heart show no feeling. The head is far too indifferent to bring the pure viewpoint of the heart as spiritual experience. No one has the spiritual experience till he is awakened in the heart. This is fact. Let the head go and the heart come, says Meher Baba. He says it and he acts in the pure self that it becomes fact. This is the great difference between the one who is teaching through the intellect, the wise scripture of the prophet, and the one who is the prophet and acts in the heart of men as stimulant awakener of the self, which is devoid of selfish reaction. This is all to be shown when Meher Baba shall speak. He shall do the act of grace to make us see the value of being spiritual. And that is to be spirit and mind in full, indivisible cooperation. This is all an order in self. When one is spiritually awake, as long as one is dormant in the self, impersonal, one is indifferent to all what is spiritual and safe. God may soon act in us all and make us know the truth. That is another far-going self-act of knowing. Truth is pure knowing of life realized as oneness experience. This we have to feel. This we have to know and feel. This is the fulfillment of life and of the pure path. God is the final act of life realization. This we, as his disciples, know that it is to be an act of grace from him, the God-man, when he thinks that it is the time for us to know the God.
Whatever it is, we know it through our own faith as the knowing state of the self-impersonal. Faith is knowing of our divine origin. Faith is the knowledge of life realized. It is fact, and the fact is real proof, as in the state of faith, man is unconditional in surrender to self and God. God in yourself in India is well seen and well known. We know less of God in the West. God is here at home. In the West, he is an order in conscience. Here he is the intimate friend of all who see in him the truth, the true realized state of love. God is far more near to self in the East than in the West. He is here the continuous worship of the self in search of him as the God which is realized as human being. Here they know where to find him. They go to him and recognize him. We search for him and find him in the intellect and in the self in the intuition. It is all the same, but it is different inasmuch as it is expressed in a different way. God is near for all who see, know, feel his life in them as truth fact. The most real action in self to demonstrate the God is to love. Love is right and real. Love is right, real reaction for all and any to make selfless service and realization in self be right and of use for the realization of the ultimate truth. God is selfless experience and selfless love. That is good to practice, as it is the most efficient way and means to realize the oneness existence, which is the scope of all life. We all need to see the God. We all want to know the God in person. We all know of him in some way or the other. I have seen the God impersonal before I have met the God personal as Meher Baba. I was given the grace to know the impersonal God. The impersonal God I love, and the personal God I worship. I love God and I worship him in Meher Baba. This I hear say to you in the East, and I shall go to the West and say the same thing. I love God impersonal and personal in Meher Baba, the perfect man. When I met him, I was in the self-impersonal, acting impersonal in life as spiritual aspirant of truth. But I was cold in the heart. I had no love for him personal. I had no love for life as the manifestation of God personal. I had no feeling for God as the pure man who is the example of God realized. I was devoid of life impersonal as the human self individual, and that was the crucifixion of my own self impersonal. I was led to meet the God personal. That day I here recall as the most important day of my whole life. I heard of him. He was in the West to bring the fact of life realized to the hemisphere, where life has far to go still to be like him, like Jesus. So he came to visit the West, and I was among the first ones to see him. I had to urge myself to find the way to him by saying to myself, let it be an adventure, see to go. It may be the God as personal manifestation of life of Jesus the Christ. I had to argue, and I went saying smilingly, knowingly, well and good, I shall attempt to see what it is all about.
So I went, and when I saw him, I was very deeply impressed, and that I wished to define by saying that I lost the consciousness of my individual self and was awakened in self infinite at once. This far-going glimpse, which is grace of him, the God-man, I here must explain as the state of self-impersonal in which we all have to be when we act real good, real pure in heart. He opened myself indivisible as life of truth, as realized state of knowing of truth, by filling my heart with love divine, love which I had never felt before, love of that order which is pure. That means devoid of self-satisfaction, devoid of life individual in reaction. Love of God is fact, and the realization state when it is given by grace of the pure master. His divine personality I felt. His pure heart I reacted. I was drawn to him as life is drawn to the sun. I saw him one in all. I saw him smile, and the smile was life-giving. I felt him think in my universal self. That all I here say to you as the hearer of my personal experiences in meeting the God-man. It is an ordinary fact to see the man who is God giving love. It is charm and no more than charm, which is beneficent. Beneficent. But that charm is life awakening. It is life making. It is life reaction of truth. It is more than any human creature can. It is making the individual self have the experience of the pure self. It is making one lose all malice. It is giving one love that is pure and unselfish. It is washing off all the impressions of life and lives. At the moment when one meets him, one is redeemed of more than one life. This is all true. It is fact of experience. I say it to all here who doubt, and to all who doubt in the West, and to all who have not yet seen him. Be sure to meet him. He is good, that is of God. He is love, that is God's expression. He is love that is good to resurrect the life of men. Life of men is to be resurrected when he is going to speak. It is soon. Be in readiness. You shall have the grace of God, and that is more than any human creature has to expect. Let it be as it is. Life of men now is expiating the worst. It has to be destroyed, that which is selfish and unreal. God has to make life new and safe and good. This is to be when he is really sure that life is in need of truth. Life as human self has to aspire to truth. Then he shall manifest. Let this be said to all: live and let live, and love and make it the main feature of life, to use the self-individual for God and not for your own self's use.
Goodness be for God. Love be for God. Life be all donated to God. By this is meant to say that God has to have what is of God. Let it be sure, real dedication of life to God, and that is to make yourself free of life in the dual suffering and make yourself free of life in trouble. To love the God is all that is of importance. To love God is to act for all. To love the God is to make the new world order be unselfish, real, good for all, to live free and safe. To love God is real happiness. This is the spiritual viewpoint of one who is desiring to share the God with all. We, the disciples of Meher Baba, have to share in all, in every hour of the day, ourself, our head, our self impersonal with him, that he may use it for the good of all. He uses his disciples to make others realize the good of him, being the demonstration of God, as in the selfless, pure human creature. He is here to be real demonstration of the real life. This is to be fully demonstrated when he is in the divine self and utters the word of truth. The day is at hand. The day every man is preparing for the new dispensation. He is helping all to resurrect the ignorant self state to the knowing self state. Let it be doing the miracle of life, realizing the best of what is in men. That is God. God is us. God is our mind, our self, our good and bad self in expiation. God is truth. All is God. So live in him and praise in him the truth. Praise the God in the way everyone is due to do. I am, as a Christian, the same as you. I worship the life of God in you and in everyone, no matter who is the aspirant to God. We are one. We are the life of God. We all are one soul. We are the self-impersonal in the individual human experience as human self in the finite existence, and in us as God, the mutual self, which he, the God-man, conducts to the final self as realization of him. So our life is one whole self-benefit, one whole life experience. All is one. Let us join in the state of being in self, one as love. Let us love together the all one self, the God of all.
The theme which is evolved in the new article is semi-mystic. I had to say these things as I had the experience that all here do live life mystical in practice and have not the intuition aspect aware. This semi-mystical way to make it clear is as far true and right as it is good to speak of the intuition of the self-impersonal, when in the world all the time men make the intuition reaction be an ordinary way of life spiritual. I know that the intuition in the scheme of intellect is the intuition of the intellect, and in no way of the self-impersonal. Life is held as being some vague expression of the intellect, and in the human self as human psyche or individual experience of the self-impersonal. I have to make it clear once over and say that I believe that the self-impersonal is the intuition which is real, true, the self-impersonal. It is an ordinary fact of knowing through the intuition what is the real self. That is fact of mystical experience. Men in general have the intuition of the intellect, and in the intellect know by feeling that the human self is more than the intellect. The intellect is far too slow in developing the intuition of the impersonal self. The intuition is far too little active in the superconscious realm of knowing the fact of truth through an other self, which is real and true. The other self is the impersonal self. All is well explained in the words of the Master, who here says, God is self in man. God is good and bad in the human self as the individual self. in the true real self as the truth self, which is realized. The true real order in conscience is to have the intuition make the way of self-realization clear and good and unselfish. All is semi-knowing, semi-one, semi-experienced in the intellect and in the semi-realized show of the self impersonal. It is the semi-realized state of the self impersonal, which is knowing. So it is far to create and to realize that one is in the impersonal self real and true, unless it is real and true in self-individual, the life's expression. This is why you have been so true in seeing in me the truth fact when you have met me. Now you do the self-impersonal as intuition for the use of self-realization under my guidance, and that is the guarantee that you shall bring to real life the knowledge of oneness.
Jai Baba.
Hey, Baba.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Nothing to it.
Very good. Enough said, eh? Hey, Judy. Number Rosa.
Wonderful, wonderful messages today. They're just so full of truth way beyond anything I can actually,
Yeah.
fully experience. But the whiff, the fragrance of it is there even to me, and that alone is so powerful.
It's really, the beauty of it is the flow of it. And yeah, it was, that's it.
I'm counting on the vibration.
Yeah.
Baba says, I here act in mind in vibration to make in you life grow. I'm counting on it. I'm taking him as his word.
Me too. I don't depend on any myself at all whatsoever. I'm just
I mean, I have to say, I totally take a mind vacation.
It does, but the one thing over time is that it does begin to manifest as this move in the direction that he's speaking of, wherever we experience it. And I think going back to the life message, what it's so important to me was in the life message after Mononash, where Baba extends the freedom that he achieved to his lovers to actually go as far as going wherever they choose to go and not directly to follow his orders. But what they must do is to look to their own faith, love, and service, and they have to look within. And has to look within, and this gives the mystical language for me gives the vision of what that experience is more and more. And I don't know how other folks feel about that.
You know, when Norina first went to India, she took, I think, 50 dresses, 26 pairs of shoes, and then because Baba didn't say any limitation or what to use or whatever, but she and the others were so embarrassed with what they took and to see how simply the women Mandali were living that they started shedding these. And I guess there was a huge garage sale at Maribel. Huge.
What's
Who's sorry now? And who?
what
You know,
what
it is incredible that this all happened in this journey with all these women squeezed together. And you get to know these different ones, like there's Margaret Krask, you know, who's no man's fool type of person, and Norina and Elizabeth, you know, all squeezed together. That was an avatar challenge, I would think.
what
I might, oh, go ahead.
what is made clear here is it's only someone on Baba's level that can really apply all of this. So we're a work in progress. But what is also something that I think does happen, one, when he gives you a direct order, if you're one of his mandali, then you're acting in his under his direction. So in as much as you do that, as you obey that order, then those actions are within what he wants and what he sees. Also, if he chooses to work through you, that's also another, I think, another way in this time. So you don't, you know, that's a personal thing, which would be hard to verify. But one time in my case, I was given a vision, and I think that that in that case, he was working through me. But there's, how well you are in sync with that, that's like difficult stuff. But anyway.
I wanted to share this because I love it, because the internet has brought very easily access to the Eastern, Western, all over the world that I love. This is Omer Baba manifesting. God has to be manifested. So we love to live. We live to die. We live to be the subject of self-reaction in use of him. We, his Eastern and Western disciples, those who have lived for him for many years, and those who have surrendered the same life to him since only a few years, all join as one devoted pack of soul hounds, all to serve his work. I love that because, I'm sure at the, creation, the Big Bang, it's like everyone knew their number, when you were gonna, and then we forgot.
Yeah.
But it's our destiny,
Sure.
So no one-upmanship.
No, not at all. And,
I mean,
as
it'll level you.
as you've made the point, Rosalie, it's really when you're acting within your authentic self, then you're playing your part. Yeah.
So, Shaw, when you said we're a work in progress, we always have to remember too that we're his work in progress, because
Right.
what it is, he's working through everything,
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
But to be on the same page as best we can in this moment right now, with this level of clarity and subtlety, this is the place where it's most right to express these things, not in detail, but in a way that working through this stuff.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah.
So don't get nervous, Rosalie. I'm trying to stay within certain limits.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you bring and others here bring out the best in me. You know, I was saying that to Charlie the other day. At the memory of his brother. That
Yeah.
in that group, yeah, I learned over the years that Charlie has a level of authenticity that could be overlooked.
I wanted to share something that I was shared on Monday night with some that were there earlier at the Scott's meeting. It had to do with, you know, we're been working with the Blue Bus period and the mystical language, which is distinct from when Norina and Elizabeth and Nadine came to America in June of 41, and Norina began giving the thought transmission talks. And I don't want to get, there's a number of things I could say about that, but I'm just going to, one of the things was I think of it as 4 periods: the period of the Blue Bus and the mystical language, and then the period of the talks in the thought transmission, and then the period at the center where Norina was giving directions for where buildings should be, what people should do, so on and so forth. And then the 4th period of her life, after when Baba, when her health, well, actually her health had begun losing her health as early as 46, but in 47, when Baba told her to, at 48, not to continue with sharing outwardly the thought transmissions.
And called her to India.
And called her to India for recuperation. But she wrote a letter to Elizabeth in 48. And I'd just like to read a couple of things that were interesting to me. I'll make a couple of comments as I go. Starting in the midst of the letter, she says to Elizabeth, "Don't get stuck at old memories. However, remember that during the 7 years of tribulations shared and endured in good comradeship, we have gained one thing in common, and that is to be head and heart surrendered to Him who is our common good in this earth of shade and light."
That's from Norina's gift.
Well, yeah, it's from page 35 of Norina's gift. So that the thing that struck out at me, that 7 years of tribulation said in the letter in 48, describes what they experienced in coming to America in 41, what it seems to me they experienced as Baba's instruments, and were instrumental in his universal work that brought America into the war. And that was the first major turning of the war. But then that period of tribulation led to the second turning, which was in 44, when they found the center and began building the center and gifted it to Baba just before D-Day, the second major turning of the war. So, and it's interesting in light of what we read today, that where she says, shared and endured in good comradeship, we have gained one thing in common, and that is to be head and heart surrendered to Him who is our common good in this earth of shade and light. It has echoes of what we just read today about dealing with good and bad. And then this is interesting. Continuing, the fact of my illness should be well understood by you, Elizabeth. Be well understood by you, being sensitive as you are. You see deeper than the other dear ones who shared in the temporary despondency and depression in my life. When I asked Baba that he should explain this mysterious deep way to work in the heart and head of the disciple who has given the life to him, he said, quote, "Don't worry, I shall give them all explanations in time and in my way." They will understand. I shall explain the dark journey of the soul, close quote. When I arrived in India, harassed and uncertain whether I should live and die for this world in all over again, and whether I could ever enjoy the fruit of all the suffering through his grace, he said these words pointed out on the board, and some of these statements were cabled to me in the USA. You must lose in order to win. You have lost something to gain everything. Through my love, you shall be redeemed and resurrected. I am the ocean that absorbs all what is impure and pure as well. It goes on, but I was that the degree of suffering they went through in doing their work during that period when they came back and led that valiant effort that led to Baba's coming to America. Quite a thing. Jai Baba.
One thing I might add, and Jonathan, you now know this, but the site in Prague, Oklahoma, where Mayor Baba had the greatest of his suffering, the accident site, is under contract for purchase by the Heartland Center, and that is proceeding. It seems to be very exciting.
Yeah.
Can you say more about how it's proceeding and
Yeah.
what's happening with it?
Yeah. So there's a purchase of the property, and that is under contract. And that is an amazing story in that the first notice that they're interested in selling came out of the blue, with virtually everybody involved at Heartland thinking the owners wanted nothing to do with Meher Baba people being a conservative Christian community. But the call came in that they would feel blessed to sell this property to the Heartland Center. And it's because that group has purchased and restored and preserved beautifully the home of the doctor who attended Mayor Baba Burleson and his partner Morrison. And these are people who, in the town of 2,500, were very instrumental in so many ways. They not only founded the hospital, kept it going through difficult financial times, they also provided land and funding for the school. Anyway, that came through on Amr Tithi, that notice they're intending to sell. Had not heard from them for a number of weeks. And then on Baba's birthday, they called the caretaker, Jane Montgomery, again and said, we just want to let you know, we just need to do some work here to subdivide the property to get different portions to different heirs, but you're going to get 6 acres in the house. And then some communication. And then on the anniversary of the accident, May 24, they called again to say, okay, we've now resolved the price. We want to sell it, at a fair price. And they came up with their number. And then yet again, on June 4th, the date that Mara and Baba were released from the hospital, they signed the contract. So anyway, it's under contract. There are some coincidences around the timing of all this unfolding. And then there's plans developing as to, preservations, what facilities are needed, and on and on. But yeah.
And are the people that are selling, is that still the Muka family?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what generation down from
grandchildren?
The grandchildren of Mr. Muka and Mrs. that brought out, well, she stayed inside, he brought out the blankets and so forth.
Yep.
So the grandchildren are selling it.
Yep.
And are recognizing an importance in doing in offering it to the Heartland Center.
Yeah,
You know,
Heartland Center has very good relations with the community because of the work they've done preserving these homes of these iconic, highly regarded people. And so it's both good work and preservation of something. I mean, what's his name? The Olympic athlete, Jim Thorpe, was born there. The town, small town, but they have a museum. There are things that are very important and special to them. And again, Heartland Center has been very respectful and appreciated the work. The town appreciates what's been done. The town also wants to sell the hospital eventually. They thought they had funding. Guess what? Current era, that may not be the case. But they said if they sell the hospital and they do have land for a replacement, they would very much want to sell it to the Heartland Group because again, they know that that would be a group that would do good work in making something special for the community that is valued and appreciated.
who owns
Morrison,
the hospital right now?
The town,
The town, the city of Prague. Uh-huh.
yeah, it's for whatever reason, it's classified as a town, but yes.
but Morrison was also a doctor affiliated with
No,
Oxford?
I no, but he was Speedy Morrison, who went by Speedy. I think he was either in finance or some other aspect, but he and Burleson were very close and they collaborated with respect to a number of projects like that.
I got it. Thanks, Bing.
Yeah.
And of course, it's Mayor Baba that's actually the orchestra leader for all of this.
Well, there are some coincidences that came with the timing, I would observe. Take it for what you will.
Well,
New Year,
the
TV,
other
birthday, whatever.
the other one is its connection with Marymount, and
Yep.
that is with the men Mondley having arrived the night before the accident
Yep.
in Marymount. It makes a connection, a very real connection between the Heartland Center and Marymount, and of course, Mayor's
Absolutely.
Center. But
Yeah.
And turning
and
around and driving back, almost immediately.
yeah.
It's,
Yeah, but that idea of the suffering, because the Marymount in Ojai, is a sacred valley to the Chumash Indians, which was a major tribe in California. And so it's a Native American connection. It's also, Baba described it as the center he liked next best, but the Mare Spiritual Center. And it's a place of, Sulphur Mountain and Agni, fire, or the Baba's nickname for Agnes, the idea of transformation and the suffering that Agnes went through to hold that property. It's an incredible story.
Absolutely. And thank you, Jonathan, for getting the tax exempt status for Mayor Mount pushed through.
Yeah, well, it was
The property tax
Baba
exempt
turning
status.
the key, I'll tell you. You just,
Jai Baba.
hey, Baba. Like this thing with the house, with the property. Well,
I'm gonna sing
oh,
you and I about
okay.
oneness is resting.
Rosalie wants to, we do the one
Let's
expression,
just do
5
it.
words from the mystical language. Oneness is rest in being. Oneness is rest in being. Being is rest in oneness. Being is rest in oneness. Oneness is rest in being. Oneness is rest in being. Being is rest in oneness. Being is rest in oneness. Oneness is rest in being.
thank you both for such a wonderful
Jay Baba. That's
Yeah,
lovely.
Baba.
Baba
Yeah,
that
Baba.
you shared with all of us.
And,
Yay, Mayor Baba.
okay, well,
Thank you for pointing out that whole correspondence in Norina's gift. I had not paid
I
it.
tell you that introduction is so chock full. And it's like anything, you keep reading and different things come out. As
Mm,
the things I could have read, but I won't read.
true.
We'll do it maybe next time.
Wow. 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 Yeah. Uh, there's a lot to unpack there. That whole episode of finding the center, well, before looking for the center, finding it, establishing it. I'm sure there's a lot there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Jai Baba.
Wow.
Jay Baba.
Baba.
Hey, Baba.
Hey, Baba, thank you.
Mhm.
Hey, Betty. Hey, Baba.
Charlie, how are you?
Hey, very good.
Oh, let's
Was a
see.
good one.
It was a
Yeah.
good one.
Yes, it was.
I
One-
must say, I got a little bit more understanding of impersonal.
Good.
That always threw me, and it was still gonna throw me until it was almost explained.
It was almost what?
Explained
Yeah.
in one of those talks about
Mhm.
it's basically egolessness and selfless service, I think, was in there.
Selfless, yeah.
But I'm going to think about like if you say something to somebody that's not real pure, you could say, "Hey, don't take it personal. It's impersonal."
Or you could say,
Right?
don't take it pure.
There you go. That was purely not me saying.
I was out of my head.
Okay, doke. Jai Baba.
Jay,
Hey, Bob.
Bye, everybody.